far we've only looked at the minor pentatonic scale and adding the flat 5 to that to make it the minor blues scale. But a large portion of blues music isn't based around minor chords. It's based around a chord called a dominant 7, which is when you just see a chord like A7, D7, G7, whatever. When you see just a letter and a 7, that is a dominant 7. Now this is, basically it's major in tonality, but dominant is its own thing. It's a major chord, a major triad with a flat 7 added, which some people call a minor 7. I'll play you a couple of those chords and I'm sure you'll recognise the sound. So we need to be able to solo over those chords. If you play the minor pentatonic scale, some licks will sound okay. But if you land on this note, for example, in A minor, which would be the flat 3rd, which a lot of people would use the minor pentatonic scale for, landing on that note, over this chord, the A7, it will sound horrible. If I just hit that C note here, over the chord, you can hear how it clashes. But if I do this, it sounds sweet. Now that is giving us another blue note, where we go from a minor 3rd, a flat 3rd, to a major 3rd, which in A minor, one example would be here. So what we're going to look at is using a scale known as the Mixolydian blues. It's the Mixolydian mode with some added notes to make it more bluesy. Those extra notes would be the flat 3, the minor 3rd, and the flat 5, just like we added in on the minor pentatonic scale. And we're going to base it around the minor pentatonic framework. This will make it much easier for you to come up with licks and to incorporate this into your playing. You only have to make a few little adjustments to make it fit. So the first main adjustment, like I said, we get this new blue note, like we did with the flat 5. It's not a note that you want to linger on. You're not going to end a phrase on that. Well, you might want to, but 99 times out of 100, you wouldn't end a phrase on that note. You'd resolve it, and it sounds good. Now, when we're playing in this situation over dominant 7 chords, we have to do the same with the flat 3. So we could do a lick and land on that note, but then we need to resolve it. So we're going to bring that flat 3 to the major 3rd. So if I play that lick again, lick wasn't the same, but you can hear how it resolves to that chord. So a general rule to apply is anytime you land on a flat 3, so in this scale shape it would be here or here, in A minor it's basically any C note, you want to make it a C sharp note. So you can land on it, but then either slide it up or bend it up to the major 3rd. And that will make the world of difference to your licks. Straight away, you'll be fitting over those chords. We get the same thing down here. So the notes that we can play, I'm going to show you all of the intervals for the Mixolydian blues scale. And you'll see that it is a lot of notes. It's not necessarily a scale that you're going to run up and down like maybe you would have with the pentatonic. It's more of like a concept. Think of it as your licks in the minor pentatonic scale, but with notes that you can add in, extra notes that you can add in. Don't think of like this scale I'm about to play as like a whole thing. These are just notes that are available to you. Yeah, if you do a run up, you haven't necessarily got to play all of them in one go. You can just pick and choose. But the key things to remember are if you land on that flat 3, you're going to want to resolve it to a 3rd. That's the main thing to remember that will transform the sound of your licks. And that's probably one of the most common mistakes I hear when I hear guitar players that are a bit more inexperienced and that they solo over a dominant blues. Like I said, it's super common. There's, large majority of blues songs are based around those chords, dominant 7 chords. Doing licks landing on the flat 3, and it sounds atrocious because they've just learned a bunch of minor pentatonic licks. But if you do those same licks and just land on that note and bring it up 1 fret, it's going to sound cool. So I'll play all the notes all the way through. It's tabbed out as well. And I'll say the intervals as we go. If you don't understand about intervals, I definitely recommend you look it up and you learn about them. It's a really easy way to learn how chords and scales are constructed and to be able to transpose them because you learn them in a generic way. So the root note is always 1. There's our root note. We then, on this string, and that's a 2, a flat 3 and a 3. We can also play the flat 3 and the 3 here. We then got the 4th, flat 5, 5, 6th, flat 7, and that's back to 1 again, that's the octave. Then up in the next octave we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to the flat 5. If you want to move into position 2, you can also do 9. Now, interval wise, that's a 2nd, flat 3, 3, a 4th, a flat 5 or a sharp 4, but in this instance it would normally be called a flat 5, and then the 5. Here we've got another 5, same note. We play the 6th, flat 7, 1. So I'm going to show you a few licks now based around, most of it's based around position 1, just to show you how we can link those notes into licks. So like I said, if you just try and play that as like a run, it sounds pretty much like you're just playing the chromatic scale. And that's because you are, with the exception of 2 notes, 3 notes. You can still play the same kind of licks as you did with the minor, because all of those notes from the minor pentatonic scale are within that scale, but you've got to change which ones you land on. And we've got some extra ones to add in. So let's look at some of the licks, and they should give you some ideas, and practice over some dominant 7 12-bar blues backing tracks. I'll have one available for download so that you can jam over that. Okay, so the first lick. Okay, we start off this lick on the A note here, which is the 7th fret on the D string. And we're going to do this little run up. Now, whenever I teach any students to start using this scale, I always find they struggle to get out of moving up the scale without doing this, which sounds very minor. So this is one of the first licks that I show people to get them to get that run out of their heads. So if you're moving up, you can have a more dominant sound, which is this. So 7th on the D, we then go 5 to 6, which is the flat 3, the minor 3rd to the major 3rd on the G string. We then go 5 to 7 on the B, and then finish on the A note up on the 5th fret E string. We then come to the 7th fret on the B, we play it, then we're going to play it again and we're going to bend a semitone up to this note. So you'll notice that this one, the 7th fret on the B string, is a new note to the minor pentatonic shape, and this is a natural 6th, and we're bending it up to a note that was in the minor pentatonic scale, the flat 7. After we've bent that note up, we come back down and we play 7. We're then going to play 5 and hammer on back to the 7th on the B. We then come to the G string, and like I said before, we're playing the minor 3rd, but we're going to immediately resolve it to the major 3rd with a hammer on. 5 to 6 on the G string, and then we resolve it to the root note of A, 7th fret, D string. I'll play that lick all the way through slowly. Okay, let's take a look at another lick. Again, still in position 1 of the minor pentatonic scale, but obviously add in the extra notes to make it Mixed Lydian Blues. So here we go. Now these licks are super simple. It's just to show you where these new notes are and mainly concentrating on where the flat third gets resolved to the major third. Okay, so we're starting off on the 5th fret on the B string. We play 5 to 8. We then come to the flat third note, which is the 5th fret on the G string, and we're just going to do a semitone bend with our first finger. That's just, again, making it major. We're going to come back to that note, and that's what we're finishing the first part of the phrase on. We then do this rundown from here. We go 7 to 5 on the D, and we go 7, 6, 5 on the A string. And we finish with a 3rd fret to 4th fret slide. So obviously we're in position 5 of the minor pentatonic now, and we're making that minor third the major third. That's just the octave lower of that. Okay, I'll play the lick all the way through. And back up to speed. Okay, here's the next one. Okay, so we start off with this double stop idea. We're going to put our 2nd finger on the 7th fret on the B string, and our 3rd finger goes on the 8th fret on the E string. And we're going to bend it up. It's not a full semitone, it's just kind of like a quarter tone, little slur bend. We then play with our 1st finger on the 5th fret, barring the B and E strings. We then do a tone bend on the 8th fret B string, and then playing the 5th fret on the E string. So those notes together. We're then going to do a rundown. We're going to go 8, 7, 5 on the B. Then we do exactly the same thing on the G. And those are triplets. Each string will be in one beat. Okay, now when I land on this 5th fret on the G, I'm going to slur that one. So I just bend it up a quarter tone. It wouldn't matter if you went all the way to the half tone, obviously. We then come to the 7th fret on the D string, and we play 7, 5. We then do a double stop on the 7th fret, G and B. Come back to the 7 on the D. Then we finish off with a double stop on the 5th fret, playing the B and the G string together. And we just hammer on our 2nd finger to the 6th fret there. That obviously makes it the major third. And the lick gets resolved. So the second half. Play the lick all the way through. Okay, and the last lick we're going to take a look at. I'll play it all the way through. Okay, so we're starting off in position 1 and we're going to end up in position 2, touching upon position 3 slightly. And it's kind of based around dominant 7 arpeggio idea. An arpeggio is just the notes of a chord played individually, so it's just like an A7 arpeggio with some extra notes added. So I start from the 5th fret on the E string, I then play 4 to 7 on the A, I then do exactly the same thing on the D string, I then play 5. I'm then going to play a dominant 7 arpeggio up the octave. So I start from the 7th fret, D string, I then go 6 on the G, 5 on the B, 8 on the B. And that's our A7 arpeggio. I'll play the whole thing that we've got so far. Okay, so once we've landed on that 8th fret on the B, we're then going to play the 7th on the B. We then got to move up to the 10th on the B into position 2. We've then got this chromatic thing moving from position 2 into position 3, where we go 8, 9, 10. Also, that's playing the flat 3, the 3, and then the 4. I slide up into position 3 to play the 12th fret. I then do the flat 3 to major 3rd hammer on, which is 8 to 9 on the E string, and finish on the A note there, 10th fret B string. I'll play the lick all the way through slowly. Okay, as always, you don't have to take the licks exactly as they're written or exactly as I've played them. I've probably played them slightly different to how they're written on the tab anyway. Experiment with them, mess around with the timing, make it your own. These licks are just to give you some ideas about which notes you can land on, which notes you can bend, so on and so forth. Make sure you practice it over a backing track too, because it's much easier to hear where these tones should be. It's much easier if you've got that reference point, and it's more fun. Next time we're going to look at some more of those licks, but in different positions around the fretboard, so I'll see you guys then.